Hey there, everyone. Um, Happy Thursday. We're back at it. It is Thursday evening, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. Again, it would be the time the Cosby Show would air about now, and we're excited to have you with us. Yes, I have blue lips. This is not by accident. Just make sure they look all right. Not by accident, not by chance. Today, I feel like being fun and funky and different just because I can. And tonight we're going to be talking about Rudy. Chapter 3 of the book is entitled Rudy. And if you've seen the flyers and stuff, there's a picture of the goldfish and the blue backdrop. And I figured, you know what? Good spirits. The thing just kind of blipped just now, so let me just repeat that. I hope you all are well and of good spirits. We're still in the pandemic, and we're still in the throes of protest, and we're still in the throes of healing and gaining some wellness, whether it's in body or mind or spirit. And before we get started, I would like to read. I would just express it off the top of my head, but I had to kind of like organize my thoughts. And I'd like to read something to you to start our show tonight. In the last few days, I'm not certain if it was a trend or if someone started it or how it came to be that, identifying people who are in your life, in particular, white people identifying Black people who are in their life and holding them up and saying, here are my Black friends, and this is who they are to me, or this is the story of the Black people I know, and as a result, this is how I show up in the world. And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit because my inbox was filled with these letters yesterday, and I think I need to make clear a couple things. That was also mixed in with why burn communities? Why are the buildings burning? I understand that this thing is happening and this is awful and it's unjust, but don't they know they're burning their own communities? Why are the buildings burning? So I want to address that as well. And then we'll get to our reading. All right. So bear with me. I'm going to communicate smoke signals. Hey, y'all. Yes, buildings must burn. They must. And I will tell you why. I started today, a second day in the row, with a massive headache, one of the worst I've experienced in a long time. It's better this morning, and it was accompanied by an ice pack, just keeping my head cool and not succumbing to, just a nasty headache. But it was of the day. Today, yesterday, the day before, mainly yesterday. In the events of the day, the anger of the day, the sorrow of the day, the anxiety of the day, I just felt this continuous droning pain. And pain is carried in various places for us individually. For some, when they feel hurt or stressed, they feel it in their hands. Some feel it in their heart, in their stomach. I get headaches. And the right side of my brain was just kicking my skull and my eyeball to the point where I just had to shut down. And that was my yesterday. What was also my yesterday was the deluge of emails, messages on Facebook, overall stories, the volume of, quote, I'm not racist. Let me tell you about my Black friend type stories. Please stop tagging me in those stories. I love you, but I will not validate you. Stop using me to give others the impression that you aren't either A, racist, which I would imagine that being the worst version, or B, that you don't live in your privilege, which is either dishonest or delusional. I am not here to elevate you out of the work you have to do Telling stories of how our relationship, your relationship with me and my relationship with you makes your life better is indeed wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It is wonderful. And I likely feel the same way. But telling stories of how my relationship with you makes your life better because it absolves you of some shame or guilt around remaining quiet when racism is illuminated is not a relationship I am willing to have. Better to do the work of an ally and show up for me than to use me as a badge of blackness. Do the work of an ally. Speak to other white people from your place of privilege against injustice and inequality. Vote out politicians and representatives who clearly do not carry the interest of all citizens. Listen more and speak less when you feel the urge creep up on you to compare your experiences in America with people of color. There isn't a version of your life harder or more complicated than a person who lives with less privilege. If you are a person 60 years and older, and you have a story of the one or two Black friends you had in the 80s or earlier, or the childhood friend you had when it was unpopular or even illegal to have a Black friend, and you claim you didn't see color, you didn't have a Black friend. If you can say I had a Black friend, but I did not see color, you did not have a Black friend. You had a project. And that Black person had a white person in their life who did nothing to create change or impact in their life. Now, you may ask, you may say, well, how do you know? How do you know if I had a Black friend or not? And how could you say that person wasn't my friend or not? Well, if you were children and when you were kids, were you permitted to sleep over at their house? Did you have an interest in sleeping over at their house? Were they invited to sleep in your house? And if you were adults, did you contribute to the effort of change in their life? Did you bring anything to the relationship that did more than allow you to say, I have a Black friend? If you had a Black friend, and you were aware of their Blackness, you were then aware of the limitations their life embodied based on their color. You would be aware of the fact they likely endured busing, massive resistance, urban renewal, Jim Crow laws, redlining, terrorism of white folks, hooded or not. You would be aware that Reaganomics hit a little bit differently among Black folks, and that the 3 strikes rule was designed to imprison more Black men for free labor across America. You would be aware that your friend likely did not own their own home or had trouble securing a home loan, had a harder time securing a quality education, and employment was limited to jobs in service and labor and paid far less than their white counterparts, even if they held the same position. That is your friend? Your friend was told to live in communities you didn't have to worry about. Your friend was told to go to schools in a way that you didn't have to worry about. Your friend was instructed to sip water and eat meals in particular places in a way that you did not have to worry about. Racism isn't just whether or not you use slurs to demean a person. It is the privilege you have to either erase me from your daily life, deliberate or not, as well as the ability to infuse me into your life at will. Let me tell you what I mean by that. If you and your white friends get together, do you talk about the racial events of the day without the presence of a Black person? On your own, do you discuss what's happening in the world, the conditions of Black America, among Latinos, the First Nation issues in America, if any of those people aren't in your presence? You can pick and choose when racism is a problem. On your own, you couldn't be bothered, but bring me into the mix. And now it's a matter for discussion. It's a matter to be addressed. How can you take action on your own? That's what we want to know. If you begin a sentence, I have a Black friend who, you don't have a Black friend. Are you hiding that person? Are you willing to bring them out when it's useful for you? Another example, cops kill an unarmed Black person. Crickets. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't touch your life. It doesn't worry you to the point where you hold your children closer. It doesn't force you to be mindful of your interaction with police officers. Black people protest and burn buildings because then it involves you. And then you have an opinion, as you should. Watching something that we've built become destroyed is hard to watch. And you absolutely should be in your feelings about that. I get that. But be a mother, a father, a community, a race for whom we have built worlds in a country not chartered for our success. When we watch what we've built is destroyed, we know that is not coming back. That life that is destroyed is not coming back. There isn't an insurance policy on the planet that can replace a life. So when you get wrapped up in your own indignation over a building that can be replaced with things inside that can be replaced, give thought to why that building is burning and what started that fire. With an understanding of why the buildings must burn, and they must burn, answer honestly. Would the life lost register in your life were it not for that burning building? Smoke signals. Good old-fashioned basic communication. Smoke signals. The buildings must burn because it is of value to those who must listen, and you must listen. You must listen to the mothers whose sons bleed out in the street, and you must listen to the fathers who cry because their daughters have been shot in their own beds by police who enter at will and without cause. You must listen when we say we are afraid for our lives in a way that you will never know. You must listen, and the smoke signals will accompany our voice. So yes, the buildings must burn. If it's the only way you will listen and see us and our Blackness, smoke signals, the buildings must burn. And if a change comes, and we do want the change to come, if lives can be saved, if justice and equality can be realized, the smoke signals can stop. The three most important documents to America and Americans: the Holy Bible, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, none of which was written for my existence or my salvation. The Holy Bible was used to enslave my people. The Declaration of Independence did not recognize my people as human. The Constitution, an antiquated document which needs to be rewritten from top to bottom, includes the freedom of my people as a conditional afterthought, an amendment voted upon, and carries clauses that ensures the inequity of my people. Smoke signals. The three most important documents that shape the principles of this country would rather I did not exist, because I do. Racist policies, laws, and practices are designed to make our lives incredibly difficult here. And so, yes, the buildings must burn. Smoke signals. Let's get on with our reading tonight. Thank you for indulging me the extra time before we got into chapter 3, Rudy. Tonight's chapter will be portrayed by some dynamic, awesome, brilliant creatives. Playing the role of Rudy is Ashlee B. Daniels. Ashlee is a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Communication at Prairie View A&M University. She's my dear friend and my cohort member as we both pursue our PhD in the Educational Leadership Program at the university. Her area of research on how to best accommodate Black women in higher education. We also have Dahleah Moore. Dahleah is reprising her role as VANESSA. She is a self-taught makeup artist and small business owner here in Houston. She's a psychology major at the University of Houston downtown. She has a background in theater arts, speech, and debate. She's an avid supporter of Black Lives Matter and all things concerning the diaspora. an amazing young lady. I'm so excited to have her read the VANESSA chapter coming up fairly soon. We also have tonight G. Parrish Johnson. Grady. Good Grady. She is a feminist, a Black feminist. She's an artist, an author, a freelance writer for the Houston Press, community contributor for Blavity.com, professor of English at Prairie View A&M University, and graduate of Texas Southern University. One of my favorite people on planet Earth and planet Mars, with a little bit of Saturn thrown in there too with the rings. We also have, who else do we have? I lost my place on my list. Moshaty. Who could forget my girl Mo? Mo is an extraordinary screenwriter, producer, author. You know what? Congratulations, Mo. I saw that you just had one of your screenplays to the quarterfinals. Oh, you have to tell us what it is. I'm trying to go from memory. I saw it and I was celebrating you, but it's a screenwriting contest. People are looking at Mo's work as a writer, and I'm so thrilled for her. Her stories include The Awakener, Room, and Catch. I think Catch is what qualified as a quarterfinalist for this competition. And she's a cognitive behavioral therapist specializing in women's recovery of PTSD, trauma, stress, gender inequality, sexuality, offering courses and talk therapy online. We also have a couple gentlemen joining us tonight in tonight's read. We have Deandre Nicholson. He will be playing the role of Kenny Bud. He says in his bio, and he kept it short and sweet, he's like, my name is Deandre Nicholson. I'm from Mississippi. My dream job is to have a talk show. My guy, he was the host of a talk show for Prairie View, PVAMU TV called It's About Time. And he interviewed some amazing people, including President Ruth Simmons and Mickey Turner, who's a professor at the University of Southern California in journalism, as well as the directors from the HBO documentary, Sandra Bland, Say Her Name, her Lives documentary. Deandre did an extraordinary interview of the directors the night the film premiered at Prairie View. So it was just an amazing time. And then finally, we have Jeremy Duncan Pape. Jeremy is a good friend of mine from back home in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's the interim artistic director for Live Arts Theater in Charlottesville. He just curated a month-long 30 plays in 30 days, a virtual theater festival for Live Arts throughout the entire month of May. It was an extraordinary experience because over the course of 30 days, every day celebrated a year in the 30-year history of Live Arts Theater. It's the theater where I grew up and cut my teeth. It's the theater he leads now. And it was just an extraordinary experience. This young man has a full-on bio that you can see online. I'm going to get right to our reading today. But I just celebrate him and this entire cast tonight as we read Chapter 3, Rudy. The crowd is just too much. Rudy has long since grown out of the need to be the one in the spotlight. The burden of being the youngest, of being the cutest, of being the one who can dance really well has now been exchanged for being the one who follows in her mother's footsteps as a lawyer, and the one who appears regularly on some news channel in the need of the Black social justice lawyer in Manhattan, and the one of the Huxtable children, not currently, nor has she ever been married. No one marvels at who she is anymore. They marvel at what she does. And that leaves a hollow place in Rudy. To escape the noise of the nosy and the endless inquiries of her love life and earnings, Rudy politely navigates a familiar escape route through the living room and up the stairs towards the second floor. Before she disappears into the hall of the second level, Rudy stops to look above the crowd. She sees her brother take over as the patriarch of the family. He is so handsome, she thinks. Theo chose to wear the black Gordon Gartrell suit she sent him for Christmas 9 months ago. Theo could always wear black on black. He looks strong. The family will need that. Rudy continues to assess the room a little longer, for she realizes this isn't a vantage point she's held often in this house. She recalls usually sitting on the stairs, hiding behind the rails to sneak peeks at VANESSA, getting yelled at for going to Baltimore, at Denise when she was supposed to be babysitting, but instead decided to sneak the boyfriend of the day into the house. The best days of her life were on these stairs, she thought. But suddenly, the stairs feel brand new. She's taller. She's not hiding behind the rails. But with her best friend gone, she's not ready to be exposed either. She has to get away. And this crowd is just too much. Sondra calls to Rudy from the front door. Over the crowded room, she, VANESSA, and Olivia walk in without Denise, which is fine by her. Rudy simply couldn't bear Denise's dismissive attitude today. Not today.
Rudy!
What? And why are you yelling my name from across the room?
Because there's someone outside waiting to see you.
Well, tell him to come in.
He said it may be easier if you come outside.
Who is it?
Rudy stops cold in her tracks. Her 5'6" frame is no match for the 6'3" Adonis standing in front of her, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. He's a stranger with a familiar face. This man stands looming over Rudy, casting a long, dark shadow as he shields the setting sun from Rudy's face, leaving a ring of heavenly hue haloing his head. The man seems a slight bit nervous, which is made evident when he greets Rudy. He takes a deep breath and stands a bit taller as he says,
"Hello, Rudy."
Hello. Peter?
With an uncomfortable chuckle, Rudy and her old friend Peter move in for an awkward embrace. Rudy notices the hug linger a little longer as longer than she had expected, but it gave her ample time to feel the strange man's biceps and feel him lift her effortlessly with the bouquet of wildflowers in the other hand. The softness of his strawberry blonde beard tickles Rudy's forehead. Rudy takes a step back to look at Peter.
Lord Jesus, when did you make a man like this? Oh, I'm sorry. I know that was rude, but I
know. No one from the old neighborhood remembers me looking this way, which is fair because I don't remember the neighborhood having 3 Starbucks spots within a 5-block radius.
Well, things do change.
And the things you need to be familiar, you're glad they are.
Okay. Wow. Well, everyone's inside, so
I can't. I'm double parked, and I've got to get back to the city and then back to Pittsburgh in the morning.
Pittsburgh. You left New York City for Pittsburgh?
I left Brooklyn for Pittsburgh.
Touche.
I went to Pitt for college. I played football there, and now I'm an assistant coach.
Oh, wow. Football, huh? Let me guess. You were a running back?
Close.
All the times you went barreling out of the house like a freight train?
No, I know. But no. Tight end. I had a growth spurt, leaned out, gained some speed, became really good with my hands. Tight end. A finesse position.
Oh, well, okay then.
Rudy, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Me? For what?
For sharing him with us. Dr. Huxtable, well, he was all of our dads. And I had a great dad, but Dr. Huxtable was special to me, to all of us. We used to be a little jealous that he got to be your dad for real, like you had the greatest guy of all time. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm really sorry he's gone, and I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Peter. And you know what? I'm sorry for your loss too.
You know, he came out to see me play a couple times. Yeah. He and my dad would take road trips out to Pitt and watch us play West Virginia every year. My mom loved it because she didn't like the drive and she didn't like football. Your dad stepped in and got her off the hook.
Rudy lowers her saddened face as she can feel the tears creeping up. Peter gently places his hand under her chin and lifts her face, revealing a budding tear.
Your father was one of the greatest men I have ever known. Ever.
The two friends chat for a moment more. Peter hands Rudy the wildflowers and kisses her on the cheek, still holding her hand.
It was really great to see you, Rudy. Perhaps I should get home over to the city at least to see you, if you have time for me, that is.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch. I would love to see you again soon, Peter.
Peter slowly lets Rudy's hand slip out of his. He turns, and with the greatest confidence Rudy has ever seen, Peter leaves the Huxtable residence. With a soft smile on her face and wildflowers in her hands, Rudy savors the sweetness of her visit with an old friend. She re-enters the house, reminded of the bitterness of losing her best friend. Olivia and Vanessa are still standing at the door waiting for the juicy details.
A white boy. Wow. I would have expected that from Vanessa, but not you, Miss Social Justice cover of Essence. Surprising, but you could pull it off.
Wait. Why would you expect me to be dating a white guy? Not that there's anything wrong with dating a white guy. Wait, are you dating a white guy?
Oh, dear Jesus. Are you both 14? And what is wrong with you? It wouldn't matter if I was dating anyone, but I'm not. Not right now, anyway.
But you sure are doing a whole lot of smelling the roses. But wait, ain't no roses in that bouquet, girl. What are those? Weeds? Girl, he picked those up out of someone's yard on the way over here, didn't he?
Rudy, who was that? He looked familiar, but
It was Peter.
Peter? Peter from across the street, Peter?
Peter always running through their house like a bull in a china shop, Peter?
I know, right? Peter. I can't possibly date Peter. Ugh. He's like family.
Rudy, it's been 20 years. He's brand new now.
He's Peter.
Girl, you better go on and get you some Peter. Oh.
Olivia and Vanessa crack up laughing. Rudy is only mildly amused. She hands the bouquet of flowers to Olivia and pushes through the crowd and runs up the stairs.
Oh, come on, Rudy. I'm sorry.
Yep, that's exactly how Peter used to do it.
Yeah. Upstairs, the hallway is packed with more guests, standing and talking, remembering the good doctor and what times they had together. Rudy popped her head into her old bedroom to see if that was a place where she could hide, and swings the door open to find Winnie babysitting some of the smaller children of the guests, as well as the children of Theo, Vanessa, and Olivia. Before Rudy can turn and leave the room, Cousin Pam and Nelson make their way in with drinks and snacks for the small ones. Rudy can feel herself falling apart. The tears are welling up in her eyes. The lump of hard air is forming in her throat, making it very difficult to breathe. Continuing to push through the crowd, she makes her way to the bathroom. She gets inside and locks the door, and she still has a hard time breathing. She finds the edge of the tub, sits, and releases the pressure forming in her chest by letting go of the tears. The pain of losing her father released. Rudy tries to muffle her wailing as not to alarm anyone. She needs the time alone.
Please, Daddy. Please just come back. Please.
She repeats this like a hard, sincere prayer. Then there's a soft knock at the door. Rudy doesn't say anything at first. She's hoping the faint knock is of the small children, which will eventually go away. But there's a second, more deliberate knock, followed by a deep voice.
Rudy, are you in there?
Yeah, Theo. Yeah, just give me a second. Use the bathroom in Mom and Dad's room.
Rudy, are you decent?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll open up.
Suddenly, Rudy isn't sure if it's Theo. She gets up from the tub's edge and slowly reaches for the doorknob, hearing the lock pop, and turn the handle to release the latch. The creak of the door accompanies the reveal of the other side. Kenny. In an involuntary, impulsive moment, Rudy leaps up into Kenny's arms, throws her arms around his neck, and releases the most cleansing cry she has ever known. Quietly, just above a whisper, he consoles her.
Hey now, it's okay. Go ahead and cry. Let's go back into the bathroom. The hallway doesn't deserve to see you like this.
Kenny walks Rudy back into the bathroom and closes the door. He presses the lock to ensure their privacy, and he grabs a handful of tissue and gives it to Rudy.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Let's start this again. Hey, Rudy.
Hey, bud.
There she is. There's my girl. Hey.
They embrace again. Rudy leans into the chest of the only man who, after her father, loved her fiercely, and she loved back. In that safety, she grieves. The two old friends spend the next hour in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, backs up against the tub, referring people who needed the bathroom to her parents' room or to the powder room downstairs.
Why don't we go into your parents' room and let the people use the bathroom?
I don't know. It seems to make sense to do that opposed to holding this bathroom up, but I really don't know. This was the one place I could think that if I said someone's in here, I wouldn't be forced to let anyone in, I guess, but I don't know. You know what's crazy? I attended my first funeral in this room. Lamont Goldfish. He was my first pet. He died and I didn't know what to do, so I called Dad. I thought he would come get it, but do what with it? What exactly do you do with the dead? I had no idea, so we all got dressed up, and with Lamont laying in a green fishnet, we all stood around this toilet in our Sunday's best and gave Lamont Goldfish a funeral. Yeah. Wow. I've never thought of that in a long, long time.
Your dad had a way with making every moment these brilliant, compassionate teaching moments.
Yeah, he did. I don't like this, Kenny. I can't.
It's okay. It's okay.
Kenny puts his arm around Rudy's shoulder and brings her closer to him. Rudy grieves on.
This is breaking my heart. This is killing me.
I know it is. I'm so sorry, Rudy.
Rudy cries. She slows her cry for a moment. She sits up and takes a good look at Kenny. She gently takes his face in her hands, cupping his cheeks. She looks deep into his brown eyes and with all the love she could muster.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
For you, always.
They sit and they continue to talk, reflect on each other's lives, catch up over years, and they lovingly reflect on the lives of Cliff and Lamont Goldfish. Thus ends the reading of chapter 3, Rudy. Wow. And then we're going to move into our panel discussion. We're going to take a breath first. Whoo! That Rudy chapter, y'all did it. Y'all did an excellent, excellent thing. I want to thank that phenomenal cast for doing such a fine, fine job reading. They will be a part of the panel discussion that we are going to move into right now, entitled Idols Burning Down. Seems like we're burning all sorts of things down tonight. With Idols Burning Down, our panel will include Harrison Guy, as well as Monique L. Thomas. and again, with the cast that you just saw read Rudy. Let's start with Harrison Guy. Harrison is a Houston native. He began his dance. He's a dancer. He began his dance journey here in Texas with the Ruth Elgin Dance Studio. Building on his love for social dance and hip hop, Harrison studied dance at Prairie View A&M University and Sam Houston University. There's so many wonderful things I could say about Harrison. First of all, look at that picture of that man. He's gorgeous. He takes some gorgeous pictures. He's a part of the mayor's first collective of the LGBTQ council, the mayor's council for equality here in the Houston area. He is a beacon of light and an officer of change. And I'm so happy to have him on our panel tonight. We also have Monique Thomas, who is returning as a panelist. She joined us on our first episode, or our second episode, the first chapter, entitled Theo. And she comes back. She's a program coordinator at Caltech Center for Inclusion and Diversity in Pasadena, California. And again, a fellow Cal Stater, as she has roots in Cal State Dominguez Hills and Cal State LA. And again, you can read her bio and info right there. She has a phenomenal one-woman show called Hair Journey, an autoethnographic performance, explores Black women's hair as the site of cultural performance and the source of joy, pain, struggle, redemption, and resistance. A phenomenal piece. I had the pleasure of seeing it a few weeks ago. And I'm just so thankful that she's made a return to our panel tonight. Thank you all for participating in the panel this evening. And welcome. As I said before, many of our cast members are going to share on the panel. We're going to have them rotate around a bit. Laura's going to manage that a bit for us. And I just want to first by asking how everyone's doing. How are you all doing today?
Woo. I was good until you, I had processed my energy. And then when you hit me with the smoke signals, buildings must burn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You already know.
Yeah. How you doing, Ashlee?
I think I'm okay. I'm great. I'm okay. Hanging by a thread, but I think I'm doing okay.
That's been your running go-to all afternoon.
That is my theme phrase for the entire month. Hanging on by a thread.
Well, we're gonna keep things kind of relaxed tonight. Hey, Harrison, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing taking it day by day, and just trying to stay centered and do the work.
Stay centered and do the work. We appreciate all the work that you do, brother. There's Monique. I'm going to come back to Monique because it looked like she was in and out just now. I'm going to let you get set and ready to go. Jeremy, how you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling really grateful to be able to listen to you and be in presence with just so many intelligent people, and just I'm here to listen and learn as best I can.
Well, thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for reading Peter. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. And Monique, how you doing?
I'm good. The sun was in my face, so I had to reconfigure myself. But I'm exhausted. If I'm being honest, I'm exhausted, but I've been looking forward to this all week because this is giving me sanity and community and so I'm really happy to be here. Sure.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming back. Today was the funeral for George, the memorial service, the funeral service for George Floyd earlier today. I don't know if you all got a chance to look at it, but it's tough to all of a sudden become a symbol, which I don't know if his family ever saw that coming, or if, we get these stories, these narratives of who a person was or what they did, or, and they're, especially when they're Black men killed at the hands of police, there's this framing that they were less than valuable in society. And yet his life you know, I don't know the man, but it feels like he's been elevated as a result of his death, which is no time to elevate a person. Like give them their flowers while they're here, right? What are your thoughts as we talk about establishing idols, as we talk about establishing people who become our role models or folks that we emulate? How do we decide who's to be elevated and when they're to be elevated? Let's start with our panelists, and then we'll rotate around our cast.
Just to talk about Mr. Floyd in particular, you know, I think that sometimes we wrestle with what to do when these things happen, and we try to make the most out of the person's life because they were taken in a way that was just so unjust. And you know, I just offer that it is absolutely no trading of someone's life, even for symbolism and for idol status, for a country like America. They don't deserve a life even in exchange for change and, you know, all these things that come about. And so I think making people, when they die like this, I think making them a symbol and an idol is just Black people. You know, it's just another way that we do the best with what we have and play the hand that we've been dealt, you know, honestly, because we don't want that person's death to be, you know, in vain. But it's just, I mean, keeping it focused that ain't no way to, you know, that's not a trade. You know what I mean? Like that America doesn't deserve any of our lives for symbolism or for change. You know, if someone is going to die for this, it should not be us. And so just to say that little piece, that's just something I think about, because I just think about, you know, I thought about that a lot, because I think people saying that, you know, he doesn't deserve to be like a symbol because of, you know, who he was and the life that he lived and the way he navigated society. He doesn't deserve to be kind of put up on, you know, on this pedestal. And even that, you know, even hearing that is interesting. You know, I choose to do any of these things. And so his life in particular, in the framework and lens from an idol standpoint, it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting to think about it. But I think about the funeral today too, in Reverend Al Sharpton, and how, you know, he's been elevated, but, you know, there's a whole generation that's saying maybe not, you know, not so much. And so I don't know how we decide. But what's interesting to me is sometimes we decide and then we undecide. And so it's a really, really great conversation for us to be having.
Sure. Monique, what are your thoughts?
You know, I feel like particularly around this, that it's a space of shifting idols, right? So usually what happens within our community is that we know, like someone like George Floyd is someone that would have been in my neighborhood growing up. He's someone that I feel like I know. And in the news, whenever one of us is killed, the first thing that comes out is, okay, what was he wearing? What was in his system? I heard, you know, when it was clear that it was homicide, there was murder, that there was a question about, well, maybe he had a pre-existing health condition. And I'm like, yeah, his pre-existing condition was being Black. Like, I don't understand why this is still a question. But yeah, so there's a question of idling. But I feel that the opposite with the, you know, white society and white media, the way that shows up is tearing down our people and saying, well, no, you don't deserve to even be martyred because look at all these things and ways that you were living your life. It's interesting that we're talking about Al Sharpton, and one of the things I'm noticing now, I'm a Gen Xer and I work with millennials and younger, right? And a lot of my students that I'm working with now are going to be voting for the first time in this election. And the way that I thought about the heroes of our communities and our societies, they don't hold them up in the same way. And some of them are holding up. And so I was thinking about that, the whole idea of idols burning down. There are people that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago would have been someone that we're like, absolutely, in the Black community, that's who we want to represent us. And I find it interesting that our young people are like, no, I'm holding you to a higher standard. I'm looking at what you were doing around criminal justice 10 years ago. You might be Black, but representation isn't about that, of how you look. It's, do you represent what I need and what I want? So I feel like as a country, we're in this space of sort of, what does it mean to be idolized and lifted? We're tearing some down and we're uplifting others that traditionally aren't held up.
Sure.
Mhm.
Looks like Moshaty has joined us on our panel as well. As I said before, Laura Burks, who's our first AD and stage manager, who's running everything from behind. She's going to be rotating people in and out. So we'll see Jeremy again. So stay there, Jeremy. But we're going to also see Deandre. We'll see Dahleah. We have Moshaty up on the screen right now. Mo, what are your thoughts on how we shape our idols, especially given this fluid time that we have, where we're referencing Sharpton because he spoke today. There's been a lot of Martin Luther King referencing because people are burning down buildings, and it's the respectability politics that a lot of people want to reach for, in the form of protest. But a lot of the people that are being referenced as past idols, as Monique said, also were leaders or seen as idols before social media, before the internet allowed us to go, I don't know. Did y'all see what he was doing? You see who Al Dayton, the indiscretions of, and so, now are at a time where identifying our leadership is a little bit more fluid because, our time, we're so fickle because things are moving so quickly in the way that we get our information. What does that look like for you and how idols are shaped to get today?
I think it's interesting because I really feel like we're on the cusp of forcing ourselves to take a better look at idols. And there's a lot that happened during these last couple of weeks where we're all angry. And then we have a lot of people who are either from either side. Either it's been us, it's been people who are trying to be allies. Some are succeeding, some are failing miserably. But I feel like one thing that you can guarantee to always happen in the aftermath of police brutality on the Black community or another Black death is that someone will always reach back and grab a Martin Luther King quote and slap it into what exactly needs to be happening today. And it's also about how King would not appreciate this and King would not appreciate that. And I feel like a lot of that verbiage comes from people who definitely had not read a lot of his principles. Not all of his principles were pacifist principles. And a lot of it was bringing about revolution and revolutionary thinking and getting that anger up and that passion to drive us forward, to drive the Black community forward, to make people uncomfortable, to see things like that. And I get frustrated with the idolship, especially with the Black men and women and children that have died. We become a banner. It becomes a button. It becomes a shirt. It becomes a hashtag. It becomes a meme. It becomes something, it becomes, it falls into the 9/11 category of never forget until the next one comes along. And we don't talk about them until the anniversary of their death. So I think we need to be really careful about, and this is no umbrage to what's happening for George Floyd or anything. I think at the end of the day, that's when things are going to pop off, they're going to pop off. And this might be what's inciting all of this final change to happening, hopefully. But what makes me nervous about the whole idolship thing is that people definitely use Black Death as a banner. We wave it around and we say, that, we want this killer's come to justice, and then it falls away and we stop thinking about it. Yeah. And not all of us, but we stop doing the work. And that's our allies that are, like I said, succeeding and failing miserably. It's still all of that group. It simmers until the next one. And then now everybody's outraged again. And then it's like, oh gosh, remember them? Yeah. Remember that. Where is that? And it just ends up snowballing and it ebbs and flows where we put somebody as the face of outrage until there's another outrage.
Yeah.
So when are we going to take care of one outrage and make change so there's not more outrage and then another outrage and another outrage? What makes me nervous about idolship, especially people that find it within the resolve of Black people that are trying to make changes, is not only standing behind us and saying, yeah, what they said. Yeah. There's a whole lot of space on either side of us. Yeah. Why aren't you occupying that? Why do we have to say it first? Why do we have to be angry first? Why do we have to teach you how to change things for us. Why do we always constantly have to educate you on how to make changes with us, for us, and not against us? I think, especially with that idolship, definitely puts it on the shoulders of Black people, and tell us who to root for and against. And that's how I'm going to show you that I'm your ally, because you're telling me what to do instead of me making that decision on my own and fighting alongside of you. So it does make me nervous that we idolize just the rotating hashtags, that it's George Floyd. Maybe 18 months from now, it might be another Black woman or child. And then we'll go through all of this again. And it's when does this idolization turn into action and turn into change? And I'm hoping that it happens in our lifetime.
Is there value then in maintaining this construct or this paradigm of identifying a leader or an idol to whom we could reach, or idealize idol as being the voice, as being the go-to, Harrison? I mean, coming from the LGBTQ community, that idea of idol or who to put on a pedestal gets lost then in the push and pull of racial relationships. You have the uprising around Stonewall, and a lot of people are like, yeah, but you don't credit the right people as having started that revolution. Or when you think about, here we are in Pride, Pride Month. When we think about the people who are at the forefront of social unrest and social justice for a community, sometimes that identity gets lost behind additional politics. Like, is it worth us even hanging on to those old constructs of idol when there's so many political layers to it that makes it all fruitless?
I don't think so. What I really like about this current movement is that the idea of an idol or a leader is very horizontal. It's eye to eye, and it's not looking up at someone that is, more than me or above me, but it is just seeing the leadership around me. And I think that that's a better way to look at it, because the way I see, like, even from a Black gay perspective for myself, I have three Black gay men that I consider to be my heroes, really, and all three of them have some problematic part of them. All three of them. Yeah. And so, like, for instance, Bayard Rustin is just someone who I adore, but there's a part of his partnership in choosing, love was interracial, and I don't have a problem with that. But there's some problematic things around that choosing and around words using, things like that, right? And so then I think about, James Baldwin, same thing. It's kind of like, there are parts of you. I see myself in part of you. So I like the idea of thinking about less about an idol and just looking for the parts of someone that you see yourself in. That takes looking eye to eye. I'm not looking up. And so that's one thing I'm really appreciative for, that young people have kind of tore that down. I mean, I could say the right thing tomorrow and be famous, So it is really horizontal. It is not looking up. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of us, especially for generations above me, and kind of right where I think I'm right on the edge, because I got to experience both internet and no internet. I got to experience both, which I think I'm so grateful for that I have that context for both. But that's what I like about about young people. They really challenge you and even making me think, okay, well, do I really need someone to look up to, or is it just that I need something, and maybe it's not that. So that's kind of the way I look at it, is I'm kind of glad it's going away from that. I will say that and I tweeted about this earlier, so what I do miss is a central hub for things, period. Okay. Void of a leader. Like the Blackout Tuesday thing that happened was so confusing, and nobody knew what was going and what to do and what not to do, and then I just gave up, honestly. And so it made me miss a central place that says, here's what we're doing today, and this is why it's gonna, here's our goal with this, and if we're gonna have things like that, it just makes it easier. But maybe the sacrifice in tearing that down is we don't get that, we don't get the luxury of that hub anymore, and I'm starting to think that maybe that's worth the risk, and so I'm conflicted, but those are kind of my thoughts around that.
It's like there's a trade-off, whereas, maybe we're looking, unilateral at who could potentially be our idols. We lose something that came with the the paradigm of having a particular point person or a point organization or a hub. Whereas then that person seemed untouchable, and you really had to you were looking at a celebrity and not so much as a reflection of yourself.
Right.
And
Or
so there's a little bit of trade-off, perhaps. Yeah.
Idol thing. Now you got to think about your hub thing. What are you going to do? What are you going to replace it with? It ain't going to work the same way anymore. And so,
Sure.
you know, that's the work we don't want to do. That's detailed strategy work. That's not sexy, right? That we don't want to do. But that's essentially what it's saying is you do lose something. And if you wanted that, now you have to rethink that because you gave this up.
Yeah. Yeah. Ashlee, Grady, you two are Houston natives. Well, no, Ashlee, are you from Houston? You're from Dallas. You're from here.
Yep. Not from Dallas.
Oh, you're from Dallas. All right. Well, Texans. Y'all Texas people. Texas is known for kind of doing things its own way. I mean, we saw yesterday, you know, the beautiful, powerful images of Black men and women and children on their horses, on horseback. I'm from Virginia. We don't see that terribly often. That feels like a uniquely Texas, Oklahoma, you know, Louisiana, Mississippi thing, I suspect. But the idea of your idols taking on these tropes, in a sense, the Black cowboy or, you know, the rustic sort of Black Marlboro man or, you know, or woman. Tell me about the image of the person who doesn't necessarily have a famous name, but people gravitate towards them here in Texas and Houston. I mean, I watched those people on horseback, and it was simply iconic in a moment. So tell us what those visuals as idols, how are they uniquely Texan and therefore American?
I think so. I think when I think of someone specific, well, let me back up. When I think of the term idol, I think of someone that is a reflection of something that you want to be, and then ultimately you want to emulate, right? And I like that when you think of the word idolism, it is a paradigm, in which case that everyone has a different perception, and then it also evolves, or it is a sort of metamorphosis within each generation. So I'm in the bracket of millennials, and when I think of an idol, and when it comes to, you know, just Texas, I think of, and this is going to be real sentimental, guys, but I think of my mom. Right. So growing up in Dallas, it was an important thing to, you know, make sure that your mom was interlooped in anything. Like when you had your report card, you knew that you were going to get your butt whooped, or you were just going to get a nice happy hand clap. You knew that. Or your mother, the mother was the symbol of structure, of organization, of leadership, and of wisdom. And I think that, and of cooking. Can't forget that Southern cooking, y'all.
Come on now.
But,
Come on, mama.
can't forget the Southern cooking. But what's interesting about, you know, what's going on right now, I look at George Floyd. Of course, he's not an idol, but I do see how the American society is quickly trying to tear him down. And I really feel sorry, and I'm praying for his family, because they can't even grieve right now. You have him, he didn't die from the man sitting on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He died from coronavirus. Excuse me?
Right.
Why would you come up with, you're trying to come up with every little thing to justify and to, you know, just say that this person wasn't wrong, or maybe you should just, like how that term is, slavery happened a long time ago, just get over it. Like that. How do you answer to that? So I think for me, as a Black woman in Texas, how I view idolism, it's something that can easily be created overnight, but just as quickly be torn down just like that. So I see that we don't have a specific, this is the person I want to emulate. Rather, it's a trend, like over the summer, it's hot girl summer, or hey, that's what I think.
Grady, what are your thoughts? And then we're going to go to Deandre with some questions about Mississippi.
For me, in terms of the cowboy reference, that imagery there. For me, I think about my dad. My dad used to the quarter horses. They call them cutting horses in the country. And so used to had, oh my God, a ton of them, won medals and awards. But I have pictures of my father on a horse, as a young man with the pork chops and the, afro, whatever, along with just that, to me, that Texan image of that strong, rough man, kind of coming in, saving the day, because if you think about it in terms of like, I think of it almost in terms of like a biblical reference, like when Moses parts the sea, you know what I mean? You kind of have to part the way for the, the horseback, the trail riders to come in, all of that. I mean, that was a spectacle. I don't mean in a negative way, but it was spectacle in the sense of it being a big deal. And it kind of just puts me in the mind of that whole rescue and search and save. Like, when you could hear the horseback coming in on the, when you hear it, I can't think of the word, from on movies, you kind of hear the horses coming, people start getting excited. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like in terms of that imagery and that symbolism, I feel like that for Texans and people, I guess, who Oklahoma, whatever, who are into all that, it did kind of come in as like, y'all thought we were here, but the cavalry just stepped in. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought that was kind of like the period on the sentence right there. You know what I mean? For me personally. And that's kind of how I feel in terms of idolizing that particular group of people. I'm glad. I think it was the Turkey Leg Hut. I don't think it was. I know it was the husband and the wife, but I'm not really sure who else was involved in that. But I know that they were on the forefront of that. The news interviewed them and all that, and I appreciated that very much so from them, because they are a Black business in Third Ward, a Black-owned business in Third Ward. But again, all that kind of circling together to kind of mesh. You have a Black-owned business, rounding up support, coming in, and like I said, it's kind of almost that notion of like, hey, Calvary's here. Where's the horn? Where we parking at? What we doing? What we lighting on fire? What y'all got? It was like, yeah, we made it. We made you proud. So that's how I.
Yeah, and what's so endearing about seeing the cavalry come in such a way, 2020, and here comes the Black cavalry. I'm a country girl. I grew up in the mountains in Virginia. We didn't ride in on horses as such, but growing up, civil rights idols, or historically, people who we have known to be the idols of social change have by and large been people from urban centers. And so people from the country, we saw during the civil rights movement, there was a shift where, your Fannie Lou Hamer and, a lot of the core and SNCC students, young people were coming from smaller, more rural quarters. And I'm thinking about my guy, Deandre here, who's from Mississippi, from the SIP, as they say. And I'm also thinking about Jeremy, who comes from my hometown as well, where from a colonial or even a Civil War antebellum perspective, idols are uplifted in the form of statues that we are desperate to take down because the Confederacy lost. But yet, people just don't have a sense of reality where that's concerned. So Deandre and Jeremy, when it comes to idols and coming from the South and coming from that historical perspective of the people that we look up to, or the people we champion as our leaders, or the people who drive community and social, what has been your respective experiences coming from Mississippi, coming from Charlottesville? Deandre, why don't you start us off?
I would say, just from what I see on my timeline on Twitter and everything, I think young people are tired of having that one voice that speaks for everybody. I think it's more of like we all have a voice. Yeah, you may have a different status than me, but my voice is just as important as yours, and the input we have can be just as valuable as yours. So I think we've evolved from the days of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and people like that, and it's to where it's groups and it's different organizations that are speaking out on behalf of whatever the issue may be. But as far as the next part of the idols, I think like in Mississippi, Ole Miss, their mascot is the rebel, and it's been that whole thing of trying to get rid of it and change it to something that's more friendly to the black people in Mississippi. Because for a lot of people, that just brings about trauma, from grandparents to uh, just being abused and looked down upon. But then you have that sector of Mississippi who wants that, who wants to keep the rebel as the mascot because it's history for them. But just like it's history for them, it's a negative history for us. So I think it just goes to, because I got a friend, his name's Ricky, and we've been boys for, I want to say, about 8 years now. And he sent me a message asking, as if I was the leader of the black delegation or something. I don't know why he felt I was the one that could give him permission to send out a message, but he thought of everything, you could tell it was genuine, and he really wanted to speak out on behalf of black people and put his opinion in and look at his faults and everything like that. But he could have just did it. He didn't have to ask me for my permission. I'm not the voice of black people. I'm not that guy that you need to come and say, "Hey, Deandre, can I post this?" If you're feeling it, if it's genuine, do it.
Yeah.
But don't do it because if it's for retweets, if it's for the likes, if it's to say, "Hey, I got your back. Remember what I did?" Like where some you gonna use
Right.
somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Say, "Hey, you can't never say nothing bad. I did this. Remember?" So
Yeah.
I think it's a toss up.
Yeah. Jeremy, we 2 years ago saw the uprising in Charlottesville. It makes my stomach hurt every time I hear someone in the news still reference Charlottesville in regards to the August 2018 uprising. And the discussion around all of that has to do with the version of idols that white Southerners in particular like to hang on to, idols from the Confederate South. How does all of this land on you watching the unrest, the protests, but also know that Charlottesville itself is still healing from the alt-right marching in and locals fighting to do away with statues of quote unquote idols in the South? How's this land on you? Right.
Yeah, no, I got kind of lucky in some ways because I grew up, I'm a white male in the South, but I'm Jewish also, and so, and in the 70s, a Jew from New Jersey marrying a Gentile girl from Southwest Virginia. That was near a mixed marriage, and so I'm really lucky because I have a kind of that understanding of that, but I'm also protected from a lot of that because of the color of my skin and because of my gender. And so for myself, it's been it seemed so obvious that these kind of things need to get taken down, that we need to stop holding on to these. And it's not just about it, it has nothing to do with they lost, it's this old history, it's this, but it's the real reasons and the intent behind those specific statues and why they went up when they went up in the 20th century, and where they went up. I mean, good God. And the spoken intent behind the existence of those physical monuments is so clear and obvious, and it's malignant. And there's just no place for it in the now. So for me, it's easy, and that the others, say the other side, those holding so desperately onto this idea of the past, that they are so violent and so willing to go to that space so easily, in my mind, is in some ways a really good thing, because it makes it clear. It makes it clear that this is about holding on to something horrible, and it makes it clearer for people who maybe don't have an understanding. It makes it easier for them to understand. So in some ways, I look at what happened in our hometown as horrible as it was, and as horrible it is that a young woman lost her life in a terrorist attack. In some ways, I look at it as a fortunate thing, because it just makes it easier for those of us on the right side of history, I think.
It's hard to, it's when you grow up in the South and you hear the stories you see in true history books, not the ones that they gave us in schools, what Jim Crow America looked like, what the divide line was, especially in the South. One could say, oh, well, blacks sat on one side of the line and whites sat on the other side of the line, and sometimes straddling somewhere in the middle were the white people who, lend their voice to the struggle. And now, because of integration and because we've spent the last 50 years just kind of finding each other and finding the spaces where we can all kind of coexist to a degree. I mean, we still have schools in the South that still do segregated proms and graduations. We still have schools that refuse to allow their students to commingle and date each other despite being in the same building all day. We still have communities that are still feeling the effects of redlining, and urban renewal and gentrification is still very much a thing. So, but now it's difficult to know where that line is. And the more we hear people talk about the new Civil War, and there's a new Civil War happening, and the new Civil War is coming, it's difficult to know where the lines are. You have your what's that lady named? Candace? Who's the lady name that's caping for Trump every day?
Candace.
I don't commit her name to memory. I just know her name was Candace somebody. You have the Candace Owens on, on the side of what feels like the other side. And then you have, Ben and Jerry's that feel like they're on, this other side. So this idea of the rules that were established, especially in the South, that were definitely made muddy in the North, makes it unclear to know if the Civil War is coming, who's on what side. And I think as we're seeing from some of the comments, Candace Owen, we're seeing from some of the comments online that what's needed right now is, first of all, and certainly gleaning this from our panel tonight, identifying for yourself, even if it is yourself, who you will follow. Who will, please don't, not with the diamond and silk. The Sin and the Shame. That's their name, the Sin and the Shame. I'm not going to shame them. I shouldn't do that. We had a show on Monday about shaming and not shaming people. Door open, just walk through it. Okay. But my point, though, is that we have to find from ourselves, from within ourselves, as Harrison said, looking into the eyes of our leadership and not looking up with the hopes that, their wisdom will rain down on us, when in reality, their, words today are more or less spitting on us. We have to find in ourselves the means and the tools for change, and then working with others, collaborating and building the hub that we want to work in our stead for our freedom and for our progress. Dang, that hour and a half goes by so fast.
Oh.
How? Where? Okay, so with the last 10, 15 minutes with the guests that we have on tonight, I want to hear from Dahleah. Dahleah, we're going to put a pin in talking to Dahleah. She's Vanessa in the series, but we have an intimate discussion around the VANESSA chapter, and so I'm gonna. You just take her away. We can just take her away. Took her off the screens now. But we're gonna. It's not that I'm like ignoring Dahleah or not hearing her views or anything tonight. But we're gonna save her for a coming episode and finding out how she feels about all of this. But I do want to move towards our final question. That's a little bit lighter. Has a hopefully a little bit more of a laugh and smile attached to it. And asking our panelists, who was your favorite Huxtable? And if not the same answer, which Huxtable were you most like? And answering these questions, we are going to circle back around and talk about Rudy just a touch before we leave tonight, because I don't want to, even though this chapter tonight touches on Cliff as being Rudy's idol in a sense, we didn't really talk much about the chapter, but we did talk about thematically how it shaped in society. But I do want to come back around to it just a little bit. So let's start with Harrison. And let's keep the people, let's add, since Ashlee gave us her answer, let's take Ashlee out and bring Deandre in. Who else has not answered this question? I think Monique has answered it, but we'll keep Monique in there for now. Who else do we've heard from? We're going to save Dahleah because she has her own episode coming up, as does Mo. On Monday, we're going to hear from SONDRA, played by Moshaty, but we're going to hear her answer tonight on who is your favorite Huxtable and which one are you most like?
Hands down, my favorite Huxtable is Claire Huxtable. I owe everything that I am to Black women, and she is a great example of the type of Black women I grew up around. And I mean, she's just so inspirational, and just her words, the way that she speaks. So she's my favorite. Who am I most like? I would probably say Denise. I was real awkward and what is going on for most of my life growing up, and so I've kind of been in a weird space for a long time. So probably most like Denise.
Denise seems to be like that one. Everyone's like, I think I'm most like Denise. Were we all that cool? No, I'm so certain you were. In the little bit of time that the few occasions I've been watching you for at least now 3 years, but the few occasions I've been able to be in your presence, that seems incredibly appropriate and spot on. Jeremy, your favorite Huxtable and who are you most like?
I think probably my favorite is Rudy, and I think it has to do with the roots of the woman that you envisioned her becoming. I just think that the young scrappy kids and the someone who her two best friends are two guys, and it's yeah, I think that's probably why. She's not exactly not clean cut and exactly what you'd expect from a character.
Sure. Mo?
Probably my most favorite. It's really a tie between Claire and Cliff's mother, Anna. Just because she had so much history to her, and she was so soft-spoken, but she was so educational at the same time, and she always had the best advice, and was just instrumental in making sure that the rest of the family remembered where they came from. I think that was really important. That was important to me because we were kind of scattered. We don't, my mother is a naturalized immigrant, so it's having that familial history. We don't really know a lot about where we came from. So I always kind of gravitated towards when she would tell the history, or when she would take the family back to where they did this and they did this, and just the romance she had with her husband. I really loved that. Yeah. But mostly I'm probably like Rudy. I was very much a tomboy when I was little. I had a lot of guy friends, but I also was the baby of the family. And everyone saw me as being spoiled, but I think when you're the baby, people perpetually see you as the baby of the family. You could be 50, 60 years old and you still don't know no better. And that's how they treat you. And I think that I'm still kind of dealing with that. You know, I am a full-fledged adult with my own home and children and vocation and education, but I still, you know, can't be bothered to not burn the house down, according to my oldest sister.
Yeah.
So I think that I identify most with Rudy.
Yeah. Before we go to Deandre, please let's keep up 2020 Vision's answers, because he is going in. He is having a full-on Cosby Show retrospective. Let me go down all the he is going through the
Rudy's
episode.
grandparents' anniversary.
I think this is the first time. I don't know who 2020 Vision is, but he's my new favorite person chiming in along with Darnell and Alex and all the great people who have been chiming in. He is definitely going down memory lane. Did Olivia still Rudy shine? Yeah. Don't you think? The little babies? Absolutely. So, Deandre, tell us who your favorite Huxtable was, and if it's a different answer, which one were you most like?
My favorite is a toss-up. It's got to be between Cliff and his daddy.
Yes.
I grew up around a lot of old dudes, so like I just always been attracted to like old players. Like I just feel like Cliff dad was just smooth with it. You know what I'm saying? I loved all the anniversary episodes. You know, when they would do like a little song and everything for him. I loved those. I'm probably most like Olivia. I was in everything as a kid, so I ain't get my way kind of like she did, but I was in everything like she does. So that would probably be who I'm most like.
So accurate, still to this day, so accurate. You know, Deandre was one of my students at Prairie View. He graduated, a year ago? Year and a half ago?
Mm-hmm.
Year and a half ago. He graduated last year sometime. And that precocious sort of like, you know, he throws on his little charm and thinks he can get, you know, hey, TDV, I kind of want to do a show. Hey, TDV, I got an idea for a thing, you know, hey, TDV, Olivia-esque. Yeah. So that seems pretty appropriate. All right. Look, we talked a lot about society and our idols. And I think later in the series, we are going to talk specifically about Cliff versus Bill. But I think, you know, in terms of burning down our idols, I want to talk specifically to Harrison and Monique about what it means to burn down your idols when they create work that are touchstones in your life. When they, Laura, if you can bring up Monique and Harrison for me. When we look at people like Bill Cosby, when we think about people like R. Kelly, when we think about parents who are supposed to, or neighbors or neighborhood priests, reverends, teachers who are supposed to have young people's best interest or women's best interest, or they're just a fellow human's best interest at heart. They do something to damage that trust. And then we find ourselves having to burn down our idols, whether it's a religious figure or a teacher or a parent or a celebrity. How do we reconcile having a little bit of both? I mean, we talked about this a little bit with our prologue and the forward episode. And again, we're going to touch a bit on it later, but I want to get y'all's perspective of what do you do when you have to burn down your idol when they've created either a life or art that has a hand in shaping you?
Mm-hmm.
I will speak. I'm still figuring out my Michael Jackson feeling. Like I was like, I don't care. I cannot give up Thriller. There are too many memories. There's too much, The Cosby Show and Thriller. But on a personal note, my father died when I was 13. And 3 years later, I found out that he had been unfaithful to my mother, which had produced 4 other children who are my siblings, who I'm very close to now. But I remember at the time, the sense of betrayal right? Because my father, I remember being like this little girl. I was a daddy's girl. I loved him. I had to be up in the morning when he got up to go to work in the morning. I was just loved him to death. And it was so heartbreaking. And he had passed away. So there was no way for me to reconcile even with him or yell at him or ask him questions or anything.
Sure.
And so I feel like I've spent most of my adult life reconciling those pieces, right? And so what I ultimately learned to do is be angry with him, hold him accountable for what he did, and love the man that I knew, the father that I had. And I had to almost, and I know we're going to get into sort of tethering later, but I almost had to separate my mother's husband from my father to love him.
Yo.
Right. And so, yeah, that's how I reconciled.
There's a thing, tethering, pulling the tethering from your mother's husband from your father. That there's a depth to that. Wow. Harrison?
I'm one of those people that is not a clean-cut answer for me. I recognize that, that people are complex, and so even in the way we handle them, it's complicated. So for me, I'm still wrestling with that because, the truth be told, Bill Cosby's very close to us. There are R. Kelly's very close to us. I know people who are close to me who have done terrible things, and it's really complicated. And so it's so unfortunate, when you have to even address this. But I'll just say that it's complicated. I don't know that I have, a moment that I've reached where I'm just like, this person is just, gone, or this person, is still here, or I can do their art without them. It's real complicated for me. And I think that that's the kind of the way that I look at it. Because I don't think within me, I don't have a legacy of throwing people away. It's that way. It feels very strange to me. It's very boring for me just to cancel people out and throw people away. So I wrestle with that idea. But I also have this notion that I feel a way about people who accept being an idol, who take it and they benefit from it and they love it. And then there's some consequences, I think, that come with that. I do feel like there's some consequences will come with that. I feel differently a little bit about people who we make idols, who did not choose to be idols. We just made them, an idol for whatever reason. And that happens a lot now with how quick it is to be popular and famous. So I do feel that people who kind of accepted that call, there is a consequence to that. And so I'll just say that it is one of the messiest things that I think about, and I'm just not real clear on kind of where I stand, even from day to day. Like one day I just feel like, I could be completely like, hear an R. Kelly song and just, no matter where I am, challenge the person that's playing it, right? And moments I'm just like, well, not today. You know what I mean? that is from day to day, literally, it's just like, what do I do with this moment? So I don't know. I don't have good news about that. I'm all over the place with it, to be real honest. It's just, I would say that it just breaks my heart, honestly. And it just really just puts this feeling in the pit of my stomach that I haven't quite made sense of yet.
Yeah. I think your answer, both of you, kind of illuminate the answer in a way, is that it is person to person, moment to moment, day to day. Some days, I absolutely throw Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson away. Not throw away the Dangerous album. For me, it's the Dangerous album, or the Cosby Show, or A Different World. When the remix to Ignition plays somewhere, the summer has begun, and then I look at too. I remember having very clear ideas of who Kobe Bryant was when the trial came out, when everyone was looking for an answer as to whether or not he committed rape. And then with his passing, I too, like so many people, felt the bottom drop out and was devastated. So I think, what you say, Harrison, has a lot of validity to it. I mean, try as we might to be clean cut, like I'm cutting this off, or this is how I feel, or I'm done, and this person's no longer an idol, or no longer an impactful entity in my life. There's very likely, if they if who they are or the work they did or the relationship they had with us as a parent or as a spiritual leader or whomever, when something hits that chord right, you're back to, okay, all right, so what am I wrestling with in myself, rather than continuing to quote unquote burn this idol down?
Mm-hmm.
I think at the core of it, you all have said the truth tonight. We need to find the idol in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we find the God in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we pull morsels of examples or bits and pieces and ingredients that can be a part of what ends up making the sum of us from those people, without laying all of our burdens down at their feet and hoping that they will save us or provide some sort of illuminating light on the goodness of life coming from them. I think that's actually going to close our time out tonight. Thank you both so much. Thank the entire cast so much for being here tonight and talking about idols burning down and what happens when we have the people who set the course of inspiration and who present themselves as leaders to us, how they get there, how they elevated to those places. What happens when they let us down? What happens when we evolve, and maybe not so much through them letting us down, we just have a change in taste or a shift in ideology. So I think tonight's conversation really helped bring together some of the previous conversations we've had about what it means to identify which side of activism and movement in the world, what it means to stand in your choices and not be shamed for them, even if you decide the idol that you love is someone, the populace wants to burn down. And that's what the series is about, taking this content, the Cosby Show, the source material for our fan fiction, and looking at it as a separate body, perhaps from the creator, who is an incredibly problematic figure. But how do we unlove something that has its fingerprints on the success of our lives? On Monday, we're going to come back and go into chapter 4. It'll be our 5th episode on June 8th, the evening of June 8th. And we will hear from the character of SONDRA. SONDRA will be played by Moshaty. Again, you've met her tonight. She played the role beautifully tonight and will reprise her role in a featured position, as well as the introduction of Claire, performed by Valencia Tolliver. We have an amazing woman stepping into the iconic role of Claire Huxtable. She does not disappoint. And I think the work that she and Mo are going to do on Monday will just simply be beautiful. Our panel, The Invisible Ones, Colorism in Media. So we will be looking at the effects of colorism, because as we know, when SONDRA was brought into the mix, she wasn't one of the original cast members. She was brought in a little bit later. There's this whole conversation about how Cliff and Claire ended up with 2 light-skinned children and 3 darker complected children, and the hierarchy or value or all these complex ideas around color and colorism really start to kick in, not only on the Cosby Show but later on A Different World. And so, discussing The Invisible Ones, Colorism in Media, we will have Dr. Stella Smith. She will be making a return. We will also have Dr. Kelly Macias, an activist who resides in the DC area. We will welcome back Red Summer, who portrayed Denise. She will be joining us as a panelist, as will Tiffany Flowers, who also lives in the DMV area. Dr. Tammy Holmes, she's a communication professor at Prairie View A&M University, and Dr. Aviva Dove Viaban, who teaches at Arizona State University. She's a professor of film and media production and criticism. So, look at that list of fantastic panelists and performers. And I do hope you'll join us Monday evening. I was a little late getting the flyers out today, again, because I just wanted a break from the world last night, but I will get the flyers out a little bit earlier so that you can, put this on your calendar for Monday. Do join us Monday. And then next Thursday, we will have VANESSA. So next week, you don't want to miss any of the death of Cliff Huxtable. And thank you again. Have a great, great weekend. Much love. Bye.